Perfect.
How's it going to everyone tuning in to the full length version of Approach Pod, where it's less about results and more about the approach? I'm your host, Jack Moss, here to inspire, educate, and empower through rich and real conversation. Today, we have a very important guest, freshly woken up with the afro, who's joining us from New Jersey, my dear friend and former teammate, Trey Dillard. Trey is an Arizona native who has attended San Jacinto Junior College, the University of Missouri, and Texas A&M University. Trey is currently with the Philadelphia Phillies organization, assigned to their high affiliate, the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. Trey, thanks for coming on. You're officially the first guest on the Approach podcast. I'm super fired up, man. I know you have a heck of a story, and I can't wait for people to hear it because I really think that I don't know, it could get to someone and inspire someone, so or multiple people. But I couldn't be happier to call you my friend and just someone that I've worked with and someone who I admire. So I know that this might come across as, I guess, a formal interview or whatever, but I don't want it to be that, man. I just want it to be you and I talking, just because you really do have a cool story. So thank you for coming on.
Appreciate you. And you've had to have practiced that several times. 'Cause that was thoroughly impressive for an introduction, dude. That was awesome.
Trying, man, trying.
But yeah, no, likewise, dude. I'm really glad that we were able to cross paths at the time that we did and like be able to form a really good connection, especially dude, you're a hitter, I'm a pitcher. It usually doesn't happen, but the fact that people can see this greatness from each other, and like the fact that I knew you were someone special, and like the fact like I don't know, like it's just hard to explain the words of like you really don't see like the pitcher hitter connection that way. And like I was really happy that we were
Yeah,
able to form a bond over at A&M.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was that team also was just like very close knit, and it
Mhm.
didn't really feel like, regardless of the position that guys played, like it was always, everybody. There wasn't one guy on that team that I would say I would not, hang out with or, talk to or bond with. But, I always just, and people will learn in a minute, but, the story of three Tommy Johns and your story to professional baseball. Not everybody can say. I think everybody, once they get to professional baseball, everybody's kind of in the same boat. Like they had to overcome some sort of obstacle or several obstacles, and basically it's just to different degrees to get to the big leagues of how hard it was for your journey. And
Mhm.
everybody at one point or another has faced something. But I always admired you, especially at A&M, just because of how hard you worked, and hearing your story a little bit. But then as I got to know you, how it was special. So I just first off just want to talk and just kind of ask, just how, just growing up as an Arizona native, just kind of talk to me about your baseball journey leading up to the commitment to North Carolina. So you can start from as far back as you'd like, or, as recent of, middle school, or whenever you feel like a point was in your journey that you just want to share or feel comfortable sharing.
I mean, for me, it was more so the fact that when I was playing in this rec league, and I want to say I was in third grade, just trying to play with kids at my school, and the league was like, you need to play with the sixth graders, and I was 9 years old at the time, and like kind of like forced me out of the league. I was kind of like, okay, I should probably take baseball a little bit more serious, and that was when I joined the club side. And wish like I know what I know now, what I knew then, like it would have been nice just because I was abused as a kid for pitching. Like I tell people, like I threw over my 11U season from August of 2009 to August of 2010, easily threw over 230 innings in that year, which like for an 11-year-old is just not good. But it was like at the time for me, it's like I didn't care. I just wanted to win. But I always had something for baseball. It's always been a lot of fun. Always had a good arm. At the time, I thought I was going to be a hitter instead of a pitcher. But when you run an 8-second 60, and when you can't hit a fastball over 87 or breaking balls when you get to high school, it's really hard to be a hitter. So kudos to my hat for you to being able to do that. But yeah, I kind of also hit a point from seventh grade to my freshman year, just kind of stayed the same. Like didn't really hit a growth spurt, and like also lost a significant amount of weight during that time. It was really weird. I was like a really fat eighth grader, and then just like out of nowhere lost 50 pounds. Like wasn't trying to either. So it was just like weird time in my life. And then all of a sudden I get to my sophomore year, I started lifting a little bit. I had to sit out that season because I was planning on transferring high schools for my junior year. So I kind of like, I don't want to call it trained at that time, but like all I was doing was just like lifting weights like a bodybuilder, like 7 times a week. And my last outing was in that fall of my sophomore year, and I was up to 81. And then my first outing that summer, I was 88, 89. So it was kind of like, whoa,
Yeah.
really cool. I ended up getting up to 92 that summer, but at that time, still, I was just an arm. Like, had okay secondary stuff, but like all I was trying to do was just throw it as hard as I could. And I mean, ultimately, I still do that nowadays, but at least I'd have like more of an intention for doing that, and kind of flew under the radar for a while. And I think just people were just worried about, like, was the command the issue? Was it the fact that I wasn't consistent in a lot of ways? Like, I'd have an outing where I'd go 6 innings scoreless, and then have an outing where I couldn't get out of the first inning. So just all this depends up in the air. But North Carolina threw me a really good offer my summer going into my senior year. End up taking it, but the only thing was my ACT score wasn't high enough.
Yeah.
And like when I tell kids, like I tell them, like, I know school is not going to be the number one thing to you. Make sure you actually like try. Just because it was like, for me, like the limiting factor of going there was an ACT score. And then I ended up getting hurt my senior year, and they were just like, kind of just, we both went our ways. And like that was ultimately just something that I felt like I wasn't going to be ready for Division I baseball when I was 18. Like, just looking back on it now, like I'm super happy like everything happened the way it did, and I ended up going to San Jack.
So you just threw in a lot there. So you would, I guess, consider yourself kind of just like a late bloomer, because that was me. Because I, just speaking from personal experience, to where, I was always like good as like a young kid, and I was always like, I would say, one of the better players on my team. But come to like sixth, seventh grade year, I just like stopped working. And I was the kid that, how me today was not how I was when I was 12, 13. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. But I was the guy that got kind of passed up when I was like 13. I was like one of the last guys to grow. And, I was the opposite. I like, instead of losing 50 pounds, I gained like 30, 40 pounds over the course of like my eighth to 10th grade year. And
Mm-hmm.
that was when, I don't want to say I got cut from like my seventh grade team, but, I definitely was like one of the lesser players on the team. And I think a lot of kids can kind of just relate to, your story, in the sense of like, it's not always, at the beginning, it's not always about, who's the best. It's always about, if you're willing to invest into a process, and you're willing to actually put in the work, and, you know, reap what you sow later on down the road. I think that that's the key to it. And then I think the other part of it is like, everybody knows the path to be great, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like a very select few that actually are willing to stay on the path when they have, and we'll hear from you in a second on this, because I know you've got a lot to say. But when you have a million things that are telling you to not stay on the path, and you still stay on the path, I think that's really special. So you're, pitching in high school, you get an offer from North Carolina, you talk about your ACT score a little bit, you talk about, getting injured. And so then we'll flash forward to your freshman year at San Jacinto. Just kind of walk us through that experience being in Houston.
I mean, for one, like it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows there. And I mean, we were like more so like people have like JUCO stories, and like we were a luxury JUCO. Like I like there was a scout that I would had a meeting with and said, I genuinely think your guys just can win the Big 12 championship. Like our team was a very talented team, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But like it was more of like a players team. Like we were guys that we were just a talented group. And it's funny, that fall I didn't throw one pitch because I was still like coming back from a minor UCL sprain that I had my senior year. So like, and I think that was when I first discovered like what a process was, and like what truly like what putting in the work looks like, or how like work wins, like that simple, that saying. Because I was in the weight room 4 to 5 times a week. I was crushing my throwing program, crushing my pre-throw, crushing my post-throw, and like made that the number one priority in my life. And to see not only like my elbow get a lot better, my arm, like the newbie gains in the weight room was insane. My deadlift shot up 100 pounds within that year. And like the fact that like I'm going home like during winter break, and everyone's seeing me like I'm a lot stronger. Everyone's like, "Are you like on the JUCO steroids?" And I'm like, that's actually a compliment to me, just because
Yeah.
it was just like
Oh yeah.
everything that I was doing. And it wasn't just me though. There was like a group of like 7 of us that were doing the same thing, going to Anytime Fitness. Like sometimes we're going at right after practice, sometimes we're going at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night on Friday, Saturday, because that was what was important to us. It wasn't like, oh, like let's go have fun out in Houston. It was let's go work out, then let's go eat some good food. Because that was kind of like the two things for us. And then by the time season comes, like I'm throwing, I think my first outing back, I was 96, 97. It was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
starting to see everything like kind of like work its way up, end up getting up to 99 that year a couple times. And it was just like really cool also discovering like the importance of like staying like with the routine of like during catch play, having true intent on what I'm trying to do, just because like walks had always been an issue for me. And then that year I started to see my walks go down just because like I took things extremely more serious. Like far as like in catch play, I had intent to throw the ball through my target, switch up the target. And then like when I'm on the mound, like made sure to get like quality mound work. And I remember keeping my volume low, but my intensity really high during that time. And I've always messed around with like different ways of how I'm throwing. I mean, it's kind of like, because I mean, that's our life. And I'm sure it's the same way for you, far as like what your hitting routines are like. But end up having a really good year. I had went 7 for 8 on saves, and we came in third that year in the Junior College World Series, which was one heck of an experience, and was end up being anywhere from a top 85 to a top 150 draft prospect as a junior college reliever. So like that was kind of like at that time like a really high moment for me.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I ended up getting drafted by the Dodgers that year in the 16th round. That's also a pretty funny story about that. But and then ultimately went to chosen, he went to Missouri. And there's a lot of things at that time that I wish, like I used to say I wish I would have done differently, but like now just looking back on it to where I'm at now, like I'm happy how everything's gone. But going to San Jack was easily the best decision of my life, without hands down.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who go to go the junior college route, will say the same thing. It's addicting, right? Like, or at least, from what I saw at Texas A&M and what I've seen over the past couple of years, just knowing you is, once you realize the importance of having a process and, reaping the benefits and seeing results, it's like, it's addicting. And and I could see that from you is like, and we'll talk about it here in a minute when we get to, Texas A&M and then I guess the time gap between 2022 and now. But, it was like, I saw how hard you worked, but I mean, you were battling, another injury and you were going up against, tremendous odds. And it was like you still, never wavered that process. And like that's the beauty in it. So you get drafted by the Dodgers in the 16th round, and this is 2018 now.
Yes.
So you make the commitment to the University of Missouri. So talk to us about 2019 to 2021. Just talk about any experiences that you had, good and bad, just basically your process there, your journey there, and basically leading up to Texas A&M.
Well, it's funny. I went into Mizzou in 2018. Like, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. I looked like I was gonna be the 1-1 pick in 2020. Like, I'm going there, filling up the zone at 96, 98, throwing a breaking ball and a changeup for strikes, and was just unhittable in the fall. And then I just remember one practice, I had no idea where I was throwing a baseball, and that ended up staying true for the entire fall season. I went 6 weeks without getting out of an inning, and like
Yeah.
would just like almost have like anxiety attacks on the field, like especially like if we had to do like pickoffs or PFPs, just because like I had no idea where I was throwing the baseball. And it was like truly like a scary thing for me. And like there were points where I was genuinely shocked I didn't get cut, because it was just like no idea where the baseball is going. I'm not throwing strikes. And it's like I remember throwing these bullpens in those like little 9 pocket things. And I threw 3 out of 25 pitches in there. I remember my pitching coach said, well, hey, at least you can't get worse. 3 days later, I threw 2 out of 25. So it's just kind of funny in the
Oh,
aspect,
yeah.
just like everything was just not going my way. And like there's just a different style of training. Like I was used to everything like being on my own. And then there it's like everything's kind of guided. And like I didn't agree with a lot of things then. But then I ultimately think that helped me handle my junior year when I went back and of like, hey, like if you guys are gonna do things this way, like I'm gonna do things this way as well, while like staying like it's hard to explain just because I don't want to sound like I was an absolute terrible teammate and didn't do stuff, but like, did I kind of like not really do the lifts when I was there and lift later on my own? Yes. That like I kind of just pay attention to whenever one coach has said something and just let it go out one other year? Yes. Just because like I knew for me that was going to be something that was going to help me ultimately like be the best I can be in that year. I led the SEC in saves before COVID hit. So like that's kind of just like a lesson to like other people. You can't always trust your coaches as well. And
Yeah.
then ultimately then
You just
going
have to,
through,
right, be selective, like be
yeah.
like, just in terms of like, not, and I'm just going to cut you off right there for just a second, but like what I've learned is like, like, being like disrespectful or like being like put off to a coach really doesn't get anybody anywhere. And like you can disagree all you want, or you can think whatever you want about a coach, but like at the end of the day, like, you know, I heard this saying, it's like, when I was at my freshman year at Arizona State and I wasn't, playing in the role that I wanted to play in, somebody told me, it was like what does a coach gain from trying to like make you worse? Like why would a coach want to make you worse in their program? Like it doesn't make any sense. So like I stopped, like when someone would like come up to me and like tell me something, like I stopped taking it so personally. Like, coaches, like they do want to help you, but like sometimes like there is like a sense of like balance where like you talked about, like you have to be able to have the filter, because you know exactly what your process is, and if you've tried something that the coach is telling you to do. And like that was the case for me, because I had a very similar experience, as with throwing a baseball. And like people would come up and tell me, oh, you need to do this. I'm like, bro, like I've tried everything. And A&M, like I'm trying to just keep this baseball from throwing it to first base. Like I'm trying to throw to second base and try to not hit the student rec center right now. Like all I care about is like, bro, if this shortstop or second baseman catches the baseball, like I'm chilling. Like I don't care what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like just a lot of that, man. Like a lot of, like, dude, at the end of the day, because this, it's like it doesn't matter. What I've realized is like it doesn't matter how it looks. Like you just got to get the job done, bro. Like throw fuel and like throw it in the zone, and like past that, like it doesn't matter. Like stay healthy, throw it in the zone, and I mean whatever it takes for you to get there, like do it. Like if I was a coach, that's what I would tell my players, man. Like if you're doing something and I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's getting the job done, like I don't care. So
I mean, it's like my favorite saying, and like especially when someone gets a cheap hit, like they don't ask how, they ask how many.
yeah,
Like in the
exactly.
way of like no one really cares how it happens. They just care if you get it done, if you execute.
Bro. And so and you didn't play with him, but in 2023, he wasn't, we had all these guys at A&M, like electric stuff. A couple, like we got a guy who is currently in AA right now, and with the Mariners, big lefty who's like 94 to 97 with a banger. We got Willie J, who's, in high A, tearing it up, punching out the house. And there was a bunch of guys that, didn't get not didn't get drafted because they weren't good enough, just were too young, that came back to A&M and had electric seasons, and they're gonna have great pro ball careers. You had Cortez, Prager, several others from that 2023 team that, just had really, really good stuff. And I saw that in the fall and the spring, like, and I'll cut to the chase, but saw it in the fall and the spring, had a bunch of guys that had just electric stuff, from the hitting standpoint. I'm like, holy cow, like these guys are nasty. Like our staff's going to be outstanding. And, you get to the spring and, kind of not filling up the zone, as much as, maybe we thought. It was just kind of, one of those years. It was just, we had to grind through some stuff, and it is what it is. Like that happens in baseball. It's like a really hard game. But, this one guy that, we had on our staff, I faced him, 2, 3 times, and, he just, left-handed, 89, 92, touch of three, slider and a changeup, and just filled up the zone. And like when I faced him after facing some of the other guys, I was like, okay, like strike thrower, has, command, like good stuff. Like this guy's a pitcher. Like, he has, a good idea of what he's doing. And, since we had all the guys with the other just electric stuff, this guy, didn't get a ton of innings at first. And the only reason that he got innings and got a chance to get in the game is because we go to Minute Maid and we play Texas Tech in a 16 inning game. And we literally didn't have like that many other guys to throw. So out goes this lefty and goes like from the ninth inning to the 15th inning with like 8 punchies, doesn't give up a hit, like just total dominance and just
I'd
sitting
say
in.
this dude won stopper of the year this year, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
right?
Evan Aschenbeck,
That's sick.
baby. Ashi, yeah, dude. He's the
Yeah.
freaking man. But it's just like that this guy like just got the job done, dude. Like, and that's what, it sometimes it gets simplified down to is like this guy was just that good at just going out there. His heartbeat was the same, whether it was the first pitch of the game or the last pitch, bottom of the ninth, 3-2 count, 2 outs, bases juiced, and we're up a run. Like it was the same guy. So it's just like you said, man, it all comes down to just getting the job done. And, we had guys, don't get me wrong, that got the job done that year with electric stuff, but it was like, that was a cool thing about Aschenbeck, seeing it this year was like, dude, like he just went out there, filled up the zone, was like just a total competitor. And, that was really cool to watch. So keep going, man. I'm sorry to kind of had her interject there, just make a point on that. But
No, I
um,
mean that's an important point to make just because like even in pro ball I've seen some guys that like get the job done throwing like low 90s. Like everyone thinks like when you get the pro ball, everyone magically just starts throwing 100. I mean, from what you told me in the Reds, that actually might be true of the fact that you guys have like a lot of dudes that throw 99 plus, but like I mean, I saw some guys that we had two pitchers this week that both I think combined 13 scoreless innings on a Friday and Saturday start this week. There was two fastballs from them thrown above 90.
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
it, like, dude, just like if you can pound the zone, throw other stuff, and really just pitch with a lot of intent and conviction, like
yeah,
no one cares what it looks like. Oh, people really care about like how you get it done, which kind of sucks. It's because it kind of goes like a little against what we say, like process over outcome. But the fact that I feel like those people are so deep in the process of they don't care about what the scoreboard says about how fast they're throwing. They care about let me just get to this pitch. Let me win this pitch. Let me win this pitch. And like being able to see that and like combine that with the dudes that have really good stuff, those are the big leaguers. Those are the guys that go out and get the job done every day. But like it does show you, you don't have to throw 100 to pitch at a very high level.
yeah. No, exactly right. So 2020 happens. You said 7 out of 8 saves.
That was my freshman year, but I went five
Right.
of five that year and like led the SEC at that point. And like this was only through 4 weeks of the season.
Okay. So you get to COVID year. Tell me about that experience. So were you a draft eligible sophomore in 2019?
So 2019 was just like my normal year. I didn't throw much due to like not having great command. Actually, hilarious though. I went on an anxiety medication and like my next 9 outings were scoreless, which was really funny.
Yeah.
And then ended up going to the Cape that summer and just found myself again. And truly the only goal was just to have fun playing baseball. And I had a really good summer that year, especially coming off of a struggling sophomore season.
Yeah.
But 2020 comes along. I'm actually ramping up to be a starter that year. I think I was going to be our number 2 or 3. And it was kind of, it was a, words are hard sometimes. But in my fourth inning of one of our inner squads in January, I remember I flipped in a breaking ball and something in my elbow popped. And yeah, that was the first signs of that. Something in my elbow wasn't right. I
Mm.
ended up coming back that MRIs were somewhat clean. Kind of that's another story for another day. But I ended up pitching in 2020 out of the bullpen and ultimately did really well. Just that it sucked that in a 10 days period, my fastball went from 98 to 90.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. So like I looked at COVID as being like a blessing in disguise. And it kind of sucked. The draft went from 40 rounds to 5. I ended up getting an offer in the fifth, but it was just like at the time the money just wasn't right. And it was just like how it was. And then undrafted free agents could only get 20K that year. And I was only 21 years old. I was like, I could get more of that just if I did the same thing my senior year.
Yeah.
And that entire summer, got a PRP in my elbow and was just battling elbow pain. And then fall at Mizzou in 2020, like I changed my perspective that year from being like I just want to be the best player I can be to I want to be the best player I can be, but I also want to win a national championship because I wasn't expecting to be in college past my junior year.
Yeah.
And just I went about my business from a super professional way that summer. And like, I mean, I did everything in my power. Like I was going to bed at 7:45 at night to be able to wake up at 4:45 in the morning and make sure I got my 9 hours in and be ready on time for weights. Because I remember my junior year, I complained about how there wasn't really much of a warm up. So I just get to the stadium early, do my warm up like in the stadium. And like, I appreciate those moments just because it was like I'm by myself. It's 5:15 in the morning at Taylor Stadium, and I'm just like no one else is here. And it's like kind of like just like kind of a cool moment for me, like looking back. But like I did everything in my power to like get healthy. Had signs of like, okay, this will work. And then I go back home for winter break and it's like my elbow just was not working. And they were like, it's time to get Tommy John surgery. So
So this is now your second TJ.
first one, I've only had two.
Oh, you've only had two. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of weird. My senior year, I didn't get
So
one.
what, so because I was always under the impression that you've had three. So what happened?
Uh,
So with in high school, what happened?
so I just had a partial tear. And at that point, they said it wasn't graded high enough for surgery. So I just rehabbed it. But it was kind of like a thing where they were like hinted at me, like, be prepared in the next couple of years for it to give out.
Okay, got it. Okay, that makes
Mhm.
sense. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I guess I thought why I thought it was three, but okay. So this is your first, and okay, so we go now. So COVID happens. You talk about the COVID draft, and at this time, I'm just speaking from where I was. I was in high school. I was getting ready to go to ASU, and I was also bummed out that they gave the draft 5 rounds because at that time I had gone to area code and done all the stuff and done really well and thought that, there was a chance that, in those 5 rounds that I could go when in reality, like where I was truly at was like, how it is now, I would have been a day two guy. I would have been like a 6 to 10 that you give what like overslot to keep him from going to school and just like give me,
Yeah.
and that was my reality. So, but the way that draft worked for, the people that don't understand it is like, there wasn't for the most part, unless you paid someone way under slot in the first round, like you were paying slot value that whole time because if you needed the guy that you drafted to sign because you had 5 picks or 5 to 6 picks.
Well, it's
And
like I remember the White Sox, they drafted Crochet like 11th overall or ninth overall that year. And like he signed for more than like the number 5 pick that year. And they signed their second rounder, like a big high school righty for like first round money. And then their third, fourth, and fifth round all got less than 50K. So it was like there's a lot of guys going late in rounds like that that are getting 10 to 20K. And it's like people that like don't understand if like teams were just trying to save money because if they were
yeah,
like, let me get our guys early on and then we'll just backload with whatever we can get. But then it's the same case for you there. If like some teams are just like under slot and let's see what else we can get. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
just like
yeah.
it made a lot of people mad when you see someone in the third round sign for 50K.
Well, yeah, and the part that people don't understand is like the MLB draft is so different than any other draft because a lot of the times, like, so traditionally speaking, the day one draft, like, rounds for 1 and 2, like those guys are going to get slot value most of the time, unless they get over or under, like whether it be, a couple 100,000 or in the first round, if they go under slot like 1 million or over slot 1 million, because teams are saving that money to pay someone else down the road. Like there has been
Mhm.
an agreement beforehand, with whether it be like a high schooler or like a draft eligible sophomore that they're saying, hey, like here, we're going to save some money and we're going to come back to you on day 3. And it's like day 2 this year, somebody told me, I don't know how much validity it has, but there was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 60% of the day 2 guys this year got paid like or got paid below $100,000, which
I
that
mean
was
that
which that was insane. Which it's like, okay, so which I realize is like the day 2 guys. You look at the draft kind of how it works. It's like they're your really good seniors, 5th years in college that had great seasons, are really good baseball players, but just don't have the leverage that a draft eligible sophomore or a high schooler has. So we're going to pay this guy $40,000 in the 7th round so we can go get, a guy that is younger, a high schooler in like the 13th round, and we're going to pay him 400K.
exactly. And like there's because if I'm not mistaken, the rule's still true. Like you get penalized if you don't sign your top 10 rounders.
Yeah.
So like, like the first like 1 to 5, 1 to 4 rounds, like you're gonna try to go get your guys that are like quote unquote the difference makers, whatever, and then save up money through that, and then get guys in the 11th or 12th or 13th that you're gonna overslot big time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's definitely different. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't understand the draft. Like it's not always necessarily like best available, past day one.
Wow.
It's very strategic in a lot of ways. So,
Mhm.
so you're trying to win a national championship, and no surprise hearing that you were the first one there at 4:45 or 5:15 in the morning. Just talk to me about that, like that experience, man. Like, cause you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just the process of like, like you get there at 5:15 in the morning and you're feeling something in your elbow. Like, why do that?
I wanted to give myself a chance, and like I just kind of just kept telling myself, stay in the fight, stay in the fight. Like I remember there were times like my throwing program was like, and this was similar when I was at A&M too, where it's like I have days that are promising. Like I remember like like the highlight of my one of my days was I threw in such an easy 90-91 bullpen. And I was like filling up the zone, like things were going great, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like and like they weren't trying to get me to be a starter or anything. They're like, hey, like we just need you in the back end of the pen. And I'm like, totally cool with that, wherever the team needs me. And
And is this
then
at
like
Mizzou or A&M you're referring to?
the zoo. And like I had some promising days, and then like I'd go like another week of like, oh my God, this really hurts. And like it was kind of just like a back and forth thing of like this is going great, this is not going great. And then like I remember my last bullpen before I left for winter break, like I'm throwing fastballs as hard as I can at 89. And I was like, this is not good. And then I remember on the drive home, like my elbow was just like ringing, just stuck. And I'm like, this is not good. And kind of I got a couple more. I had 4 MRIs within a year span to try to figure out what was wrong with my arm. And the last one kind of showed like something was bugging on my nerve, the ulnar nerve, and they were like, "Was before we're gonna go in, we want to fix the ligament too." So end up getting like my first TJ in January of 2021. So I missed my entire senior season. And what sucked was after that, I couldn't really be around the team that much.
Yeah.
Like I was because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I was like really just on my own and like wasn't really around the team and it just kind of sucked. And like that year they ended up being really bad. And like I remember going to like some of the guys' houses like after a weekend series and just like seeing everyone just like because you know how Sunday fun day goes in college. And it's like it just was like not the
Oh, yeah.
same vibe as it was like when we were at A&M after we'd sweep somebody.
Yeah.
Like everyone's just like super sad, like the food doesn't taste the same, like the sodas don't taste the same, water is just not good, and like everyone's just it's awful. Like compared to like when you're winning, everything is so much better.
Yeah. So you go in, have the MRIs. This is your first Tommy John. So after the season at Mizzou, you get in the transfer portal and just walk me through that experience. So Nolan Kane, I'm assuming, was the one who contacted you.
He contacted you still at LSU, and he contacted me at the time.
Okay.
And kind of like was just like a short-ended conversation. And I wasn't getting much attention. And honestly, I thought I was going to get drafted still,
Yeah.
just because I knew some teams had some interest in me. And end up not getting drafted during that time or sign a free agent deal because I was willing to take anything at that time. But just teams were like, we just need someone to throw, and like you're not able to throw right now. And it's like totally understood.
Yeah.
And like that, and like being in the transfer portal, especially not coming off of a good year, like didn't really have like many great options. Like I was reaching out to like every school in the SEC, most schools in the ACC, Big 12, and like not really getting many responses from people. And I want to say Schlossnagel reached out to me first when he got the job at A&M.
Okay.
And because he recruited me at TCU
Yeah.
and he knew I was undergoing Tommy John. And then Kane, when he got the like when he was aboard, like he also reached out to me, same with Yeski, like kind of just like the entire new staff. And it was like kind of ironic because Kane recruited me at LSU when I was at Sanjak. Yeski recruited me at Oregon State when he was at Oregon State, or when he was at Oregon, or recruited me at Sanjak when he was at Oregon State. And then I went on official at TCU when Schloss was there when I was at Sanjak. So like I'd already knew all these coaches, had talked to them. So it's like kind of made the decision easy. Wanted to stay in the SEC. A&M just came off a struggling year in 2021.
Yeah.
So it was just like I was like, you know what, let's go here and like let's see what it's about. So that was kind of like how I chose A&M and that. And like it was a walk on too. Like it's like
Yeah.
different from being on a full ride in junior college to a big scholarship in Mizzou to like now I'm a walk on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, It's definitely, yeah, an experience in college
Mhm.
baseball. And I was fortunate enough to, I went with Mike, during that time. But, similar to you, Schloss was actually instead of Mike, because Mike at the time thought he was going to stay at Arizona State because just with how things were going with Coach Bloomquist there. I thought that Mike was going to keep or stay at Arizona State, which was really to me like one of the biggest reasons of like why I would have stayed, and
Mhm.
had Coach Smith not gotten or I guess they went their separate ways, or if that had not happened, you know, I'm still pretty confident that I would have stayed at Arizona State just based off how everything went. Just because I didn't want to leave, I didn't want to transfer, just because that had become my home. I'd kind of grown up there as a freshman, and I had you know, there were good teammates there, man. And, there were people that were getting in the portal and, whatever. And it was a lot of uncertainty, but like, I really didn't want to leave. But then
Mhm.
the reason, I mean, like a lot of these guys at A&M this year, when Coach Sloss, said that he was going to Texas was, I got in the portal and yeah, I got in the portal and was just kind of exploring my options, right? Just because I wanted to see who they brought in, and they brought in Coach Bloomquist. But then, you know, Brian Kane put me in contact because I'd worked with him for a while with Schloss, and Schloss reached out, and that's basically how it happened. And I think I was the first one from what he told me, because I remember I was in Orleans at the time. I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting on the back porch of my host family's house, and I told him I was going to A&M, and he was like, "All right, let's go, one of one." Like, got the first one, like the first guy I've talked to, got the like going one for one, baby. Like, let's go. He didn't say one of one, he said one for one. But so I guess that's kind of how our paths crossed, is finally we're at this point where it's this bundle of transfers and returning new guys who had an experience, like, to put for lack of better words, in 2021, just talking to them and hearing some of their stories and how that season went, and we all came in there, man, and it was this immediate buy-in. Like, I don't know how you felt, but like for me, it was like this immediate buy-in where it was like, nobody here wants to lose. Like, everybody
Mhm.
thinks we suck, but nobody here wants to lose. And, in the fall, there were plenty of things that we had to overcome. Like, number one being the fact that, you know, I had, come off several arm issues very similar to you. And, in the sense of like, I had no idea where the ball was going. And you remember that. And I mean, you remember how bad I got ripped into, like, during PFPs, or you know dude, like, I remember looking at like the schedule, like it would be posted in the locker every day, and it would say right side defense, and my heart would just like drop, and I'd be like, oh my god, like, bro. I was
But the
like,
fact that, and like, I want to stop you there just to like tell people, like, the fact that you still showed up and like you had the demeanor of like, people could tell you're uncomfortable, but you still stepped up. Like, the amount of courage that you showed during that time was truly remarkable, just because like people would have folded, would have crumbled, and you were just like, if you're making a mistake, you're right back there. You're right back there. You're right back there, especially after probably hearing a couple F bombs from our coaches and this, like, you were still going right back to it. And like, people, like, I don't think people know like how much courage it takes, because you were truly learning how to get like being uncomfortable while being uncomfortable. And it was like, just to say that, and then also to see like you still at the plate, not letting that affect you there. Sorry, I wanted to cut you off, but like
no,
people
bro,
should know like how awesome it was to like, not awesome, but like just like intriguing it was to witness that, just because like you don't teach that. Like, it was extremely courageous of you to like still go out there day in and day out. Now you also, like, we only had one first baseman, that was you. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was the other part of it too, man. And I'll shut up about myself here after this, but that was the other part of it too, was like, I could have, like, I remember, bro, I started off that fall like terrible, like hitting too. And I was like, for a second there, kind of like very similar to how you thought about when you were first at Missouri. Like, dude, I knew it. I knew that I wasn't like going to get cut, but like, bro, it's just thoughts, bro. Like, there's thoughts in our
mhm.
head. Like, I'd have a terrible day, or I'd make every play, and then we'd have that right side defense or whatever the case may be, and I'm going through it and this, that, the other. Then I'd go up, and I'm going, 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 0 for 4. And I'm like, bro, like this is not good. Like I'm like terrible right now. And like that was super humbling, bro. Like I completely get it. Like I'd say the only difference that you and I had with the throwing side is like I had an outlet because like no matter how bad I was in the field, I just knew like in my head I was thinking, well, it's a math game. If I drive in more, if I hit in more than I let up in the field, like I'm gonna be fine. And I ended up doing that, and I obviously, ended up doing fine, and made a lot of adjustments. Overcame a lot of that. But here's for me, I guess the most interesting part. Not to say that the other stuff wasn't interesting because it got you to this point, but this is the part that's interesting to me because I now know you as a person and as a friend, and as my teammate during this time. I see you get on the mound, you're throwing your first pin in a while. And I believe this was in the winter or late in the fall, early in the winter, kind of towards like the end of our fall season. You're working with J-Mac, you're working with Isaac, you're working with Yeski. Like you have like a good support system. And I always felt like, you know, Yeski was always very supportive of his guys, but was also very supportive kind of as them for human beings as well. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like I would like that's how he was to me. And like seeing how he was to my teammates, like, Yeski was literally the first call I got when I got drafted, and I was a position player. And this was when Yeski got the job had the job at LSU, and it was from Yeski. And I just thought that like that was awesome. And I hadn't talked to him because, the rules or whatever, but it was special. So, I always felt like him and, Mac and Isaac, and you had that support group, and Schloss too. And, you had these guys that, I remember Schloss almost started tearing up when, he saw you, get on that mound again for the first time in a while. And I just thought that was awesome. And just like you had like this great support system, and everything's great, right? Like you're going to be our closer. Like it's a done deal. Like you're the man, and, you're back and you're in game, and, you're filling it up. You're doing fine. And, everything's going great. And, we come to the preseason, and, we're, looking good. We're looking fine. And, then the team struggles come, and, we sweep Fordham that first weekend, win a game that we should have won in Lamar and that Tuesday. And then, everybody remembers Penn. Everybody remembers Penn, and, how we're going to wax them. And then it's freezing cold. And the next thing you know, we're down a couple runs. We lose the first game. Then we lose the second, or then we win the second game. We're like, all right, like we dropped one, whatever. Then we lose the third game, and we lose the series to an Ivy League school who was supposed to be like, man, like, how do like we can't beat those guys? Like, and come to find out, like they actually did have like a very good team. And
Very good.
like
They were good.
they really did have a good team, like not discrediting them. And their catcher was our catcher for A&M this year. And they have another guy that I believe was Ivy League Player of the Year who's transferred into A&M as well. But so at this point, it's like, Dilly's still, throwing and this, that, the other. And then I remember, we go to Frisco, and we go to the Frisco Classic, and we drop the first one to Washington State. And we not only drop it, we get stomped. Like we lose by like, we're down like 10 runs, and we score like, yeah, we score like 3 runs in like the ninth inning to like, I don't know, to be respectable. And we're like, what is going on? Like we're not in a
Dude,
good
that was
place.
the only game I threw in that year was against
So
Washington State.
that's what I'm. So we get to the Washington State game. I just want to hear your experience. So from that bullpen that I just described, you have all the support from your teammates. You have a great support system with your coaches and your trainer, your staff. You have everybody kind of on your side, and everything's going great. And you have this hope, right? Like everything's going to go great. You got an awesome support staff with you. Tell me about it.
So what's actually funny was I'm glad that it seemed like everything was going well because during that time, dude, like I'm not getting through my throwing progression days. Like I'm not able to finish like my rehab throwing. Like I'm like supposed to do like 3 sets, a certain amount of throws, and it's like middle of set 2, and I'm like my elbow kills me. Like and like continuously like day in and day out, like I felt so bad for Isaac. That dude worked so hard to help me like try to just get me back on the field. I did have a great support staff. J Mac, same exact thing. Yeski, especially when I started getting on the mound. Like, don't get me wrong, the support was great. Schloss's support, like as you know, is a little bit different in a lot of ways. But he supported me too. But it was just like I felt like he kind of wanted me to rush a little bit, and like for me, just like with a Tommy John rehab, like that's the one thing I hate about with college, like baseball programs. They think a Tommy John rehab should be in 9 to 12 months. In reality, it's 16 to 18 months, and like you don't feel like yourself until around like year two. So that's like the one thing that like I don't respect from colleges is like having unrealistic timelines for like a major surgery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still like the bullpens I started throwing were really well. And like I was like, okay, things are going great. I hit my first 90 over winter break when I'm home. And
Yep.
I'm like, okay, like this is gonna be the year I'm gonna be back to myself. And like the more I threw, like the more like my elbow like extensions shorten it up. And like there was a point in time like it was hard for me to like bend or extend my elbow. And like everyone's just telling me, oh, it's normal, it's normal, it's normal. Like the amount of pain that I was in. And like Isaac was like, I was in with him for an hour a day, and that dude was helping me. And like I gotta tip my cap to him. Like him and J Mac were both just like trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And like I will have the most upright respect for them, like till the
Yep.
day I die, just because of everything. But like into my lives and like and it was kind of like it was some were good, some were bad. And it was just like I had like one really good one where it was like, okay, like let's go. Like I'm ready for the season. And then I had some other ones where it's like, wow, I really did not throw a fastball for a strike. And
Yeah.
like not to mention my fastball velo was like 88, 92, which for like before TJ, like, I was routinely like up to 97, 98.
Yeah.
And I can remember like was through like one of my last bullpens. Like I want to say this was like week 4, and was telling like guys, like, I'm like, hey, like it's still not feeling good. Like, what should we do? And he was like, okay, the fact that you're still saying something's wrong, like let's go get an MRI on it, and end up finding out it completely tore again, which was like kind of heartbreaking. But like I'm glad that I made it seem like everything was great on the outside because dude, those were like that was easily the roughest time of my life.
Yeah. And kind of like how you just described it, man. That's, I mean, or when you said about me, dude, it's like I'm glad that, you and I have this like really good poker face where we have this we can put on this facade and, make it seem like we're all right. But dude, like the reality is like, I was like so embarrassed to come to the field every day because of the things that, I was going through. And I figured one of the best ways, I was like, dude, I honestly don't care anymore. Like, I love these guys. Like, these are my boys. Like, I honestly just want to be there for them. And just, I saw you and saw how hard you worked and saw how much it meant to you. And like, that's all I cared about was like being there for you and being there for, guys on our team that also were going through stuff that, were just there to help the team win. Cause that's why, that team was so special. And
Hmm.
you're exactly right, dude. Like, I looked at you and I was like, man, like that guy, like, cares about the process, like totally bought in, like doing concentration grids left and right, like, because we had that. And that's when we brought those in. And I remember they got like super competitive and we were like messing with each other or whatever. And it's like, dude, I thought that I just thought that I thought that you've had it figured out. And I was like, bro, like this is our guy. Like, and I was, obviously I was heartbroken for you, man. Like I felt when you got hurt, like I felt it as well. Like I'm not gonna lie, like it definitely hurt. And then, towards once we got later in towards the year, I think you ended up going home, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
So 2022 happens. You now have your second Tommy John surgery. And I remember I seen a post on I think it was your Snapchat story, your Instagram story, or something along those lines. And it was just like you in your bed or you in your hospital bed. And it was post op. And you had the sling on, and it had like this, I can't remember the exact words that you said, but it had this like really cool quote on it. And I was like, dude, if this guy makes it to the big leagues, that'd be the greatest story to ever exist. And obviously, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but the fact that you are where you are right now is incredible. Like it's already an unbelievable story. And like this is the part of the story that I think is just incredible. Like not that all the other stuff wasn't incredible. And like you already have told us all about the adversities that you face, whether it be from coaches, whether it be from playing or throwing or whatever it may be. Like it's all kind of come to fruition here, and you're here on your second surgery, come off of it, and you and I are still talking, probably, I don't know, like every 2 to 3 weeks, like nothing crazy. We'll Snapchat each other. And I see on your stories that you're coaching a little league team all of a sudden, and and you text me one day, you're like, we just are trying to catch up, and you're like, bro, like, yeah, I'm training in the day. I go to train in the mornings, and then I, go work at a job, and then I'm also coaching a little league team. But I tell myself if I can do this, I can pitch in the big league. So like, it really doesn't matter. And I'm like, dude, this guy's crazy. I was like, dude, this guy's nuts. And so just walk us through, man. Just let it open to you. And basically the year from after you head home from Texas A&M, from end of spring of 2022 to when you get picked up in 2023.
So like I end up leaving A&M just because like for me I had a bad experience at Mizzou with like letting the school rehab me, and like I ain't gonna lie, I didn't trust the PT at A&M. Like she filled in before Isaac got there and like did just a terrible job with my arm. And like at the end, like no one knew that my elbow was great, but it's just like for me, it's like I wanted to be home, like wanted to be like just do things my way, kind of the way. And that's kind of like always how I've been. If like I didn't like the way that like I was provided, I'm like, let's find a better solution. So like for me, like went home, found a good PT that I was able to work with, and like it was like just taking it day by day.
Yeah.
And about like a couple weeks in, my mom was like, because I was living at home with her, and she was like, she's probably looking to get in a job. And I was like, not wrong. Like, so I ended up working at like a corporate cryotherapy place and like was putting in 40 hours a week there. And it was kind of funny. I'd actually turn on the games all the time that you guys were playing. Like I remember, I think you guys were at Old Miss that year, and I had you guys beat. Like I watched the game. You guys beat Texas in Omaha. Like so, I was still keeping up with you guys,
Yeah.
and it was really cool to watch you guys like continue to do what you were doing. But yeah, so I'm working 40 hours a week, doing my rehab like around 8 o'clock in the morning, then going working from like 10 to 6. And then I can remember one of my buddies hit me up and was like, "Hey, you want to coach like a youth team?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" He's like, "I'll put you in touch with the guy." And I started coaching these 10-year-olds in that fall of 22, while along with working at the cryotherapy place and doing my rehab. And like, it was just like a fun little time, like being able like to get kids better. And my team was terrible. Like we started off 0-15, like getting run ruled. I think we got run ruled 13 of those games. Just really bad. It was a process. And then like I can remember like the first game we won, like they act like they won the World Series. And we walked it off too, which was electric. But like I don't know, like I just had fun doing that. Oh, yeah, I should also mention I was in grad school still at A&M. Like I was taking classes, finishing my master's degree at the time. So but yeah, no, my life like got extremely busy. And like I ended up coaching another team later that winter, I want to say when 2023 started. And like that was my life. Like I was going to rehab early in the morning and then from like 8 to 10, then from like 10:30 to like 6, I was working at the cryotherapy job. And then after that, I was coaching at 9 o'clock if I do some homework till like 10 o'clock, and I was going to bed doing it again. And
Yeah.
then on weekends, I'm coaching tournaments where I'd be gone for 8 hours a day. And like from both Saturday and Sunday, it was just like that was my life. Like I didn't have much time for really any free time, but like I told you, I kept telling myself I can do this, like I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And like for me, like especially if I have a bad outing nowadays, I just look back and like look at like the low point of my life of like I was just grinding my ass off,
Yeah.
and just to see like it just makes everything better from a perspective side of things. But
Yeah.
I ended up, I kind of got like my rehab was going like very smoothly, completely opposite of my first Tommy John. And like I think I hit 90 like 9 months out, and like my arm's feeling great. Like I was like, oh, like this is insane. Everything's feeling great. Like
So at this
some,
point, you're working with Dean, right?
I was still at my PT, but I ended up transitioning to Dean about like 2 months later. And then like when I transitioned to Dean, like because I wasn't throwing my breaking ball well with my PT, and and it was at a point where it was like he was like, all right, let's get ready for lives. And for me, I felt like I was like, there's still a little bit more I can do before like I throw to hitters. And like because like I said, I went home to do things the way that I wanted to.
Yeah.
And like I was like they wanted me to throw to hitters at 11 months, and I was like, I still think there's a little bit more I can get out of myself. So that's when I started working with Dean, because I'm out of like the rehab phase of like I'm like I can train now. And Dean builds me up phenomenally and like gets me to a point over the summer like I can pitch. Like I'm ready to throw. If I need to throw 3 times in a
This
week,
is
I
summer 2023.
yes. So like this is like June, July, like I'm throwing. And at this point, I actually quit my cryotherapy job just because like I had like I wasn't making a lot of money an hour, and like I ended up finding out that I could make a lot of money an hour doing lessons. So like I was filling that time with some doing some lessons, but like was giving more time to for myself for training. And like was also at this point now, since I did such a great job coaching the 10 and 12-year-olds, I was now coaching a high school team as well, that like in the summer showcase circuit. And it was actually pretty cool because those kids, I think like six of them end up playing Division 1 ball, so like, or playing D1 ball. So like it was kind of cool to be around like kids my age, and it was definitely like I could swear a little bit more in front of them compared to 10-year-olds. But it was but yeah, no, my life was still busy. I'm training, and then I can remember my agent told me, hey, when you can feel like that you can throw a bullpen and then do it the next day, let me know. And like it was after a week of I threw three bullpens, and I had my average fastball was 95 Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like Dean told me like, hey, like it's time. And through like a mini pro day and end up signing with the Phillies. So it was just like a cool process,
Bro,
like
but
kind of
like you like you say all that like so nonchalantly. Like let me just like backtrack. You were working a job while also PTing and rehabbing a Tommy John surgery, while also coaching a little league team, and you were doing this like how many times a week?
five.
Okay, 5 times a week. Like,
And I was in grad school. Don't forget that part
and you
too.
had, yeah, bro, and you're also still taking classes in grad school. Like, that's
Yeah.
not like something that you just say nonchalantly. That's incredible. And so I guess like the reason is like more on like a philosophical level instead of like, you could say like, oh, I just wanted to give myself a fighting chance. Like I get it. Like I'm the same way. Like I want to give myself a chance to play in the big leagues every time, I get in the weight room or whatever the case may be. But like, bro, like at a certain point, you know, and like let's not be naive to this, like you're 3 years older than me. Like the time clock part of it, like you haven't pitched in a live game. So it's 2023. You pitched in a live. You threw what, an inning at Texas A&M, and you threw a
Like
couple.
I'd have been healthy since 2019, really, because I
So
threw all of 2020.
you hadn't been healthy since 2019. You have this entire story and this entire 4 year window of just like, all right, throwing, getting hurt, or don't have control. Like maybe this is like just a flash in the pan, like type of moment, when you're with Dean. Why, why do all that? Why go through all that trouble? Because it's really easy, for you or me or anybody else in professional baseball to just say, okay, like things aren't going my way. I'm just going to chalk it up. Like I'm going to finish school and go get paid and like go get like a job and, start worrying about that stuff. But like you didn't. And I think that's such a special part of this. So,
Mm-hmm.
and your story, I don't really know many others like it. Like everybody, like I said earlier, like has difficulty that they face. But your story is unbelievable because you didn't stop. You stayed on that path that everybody knows is the right way, but it's like, how much can you take and still stay on that path? So
Mm-hmm.
why do all that?
I mean, you have to go back to like what your reason why is. And like for me, just like growing up, like I didn't have really many friends. Like baseball was all that I ever wanted to do as a kid. And like for me, it was the way that baseball made me feel as a person. Like I know like you're not supposed to like make the what you do like into who you are. And like I've done a better job at that as I've gotten older. But it's like for me, like baseball made me feel like alive. Baseball made me feel extremely happy, extremely genuine. Like it was incredible for me. Like I don't want to say like baseball saved my life just because I've always played as a kid, but like baseball was just something that I've like always wanted to do. And like it's always been like a vision of mine to be the best I can be. And like I knew like that's just what I know. And like that's like kind of just like the simple answer of like if you really want what you want in this life, you'll figure out the reason how. And like, or no, I messed that up. If you have a big enough reason why, you'll figure out the reason how. So like it
I
was
know.
like, yeah, like, but for me, it was just like I like knew my why. I knew that my stuff was good enough to be at a professional level, if not a little bit higher. And it's just for me, just keep going. Like, cause it was like, cause if I say something along the lines of like, I've been saying it my whole life, I want to be a big leaguer. I want to be a big leaguer. So like, why would I quit when I knew that there's still an opportunity to?
Yeah.
Like, it's from like a physical side, like I knew that I could get back to the way that I wanted to be. So it was just like, why give up now? And I guess that's like I'm a little bit different in that aspect, just because like if I say something, I'm going to do it. And for me, like I was like, quitting wasn't really an option. Like that didn't like come to my mind at all. Now, obviously, when I found out the news, like I think I might have messed around at A&M and said like, "Ah, I might just go join the military." But like this was also just like I don't know, but like because I was also like an extremely low point in my life, and like I remember like the day that my second surgery happened, I kind of like just switched like a just like it was kind of like a switch the flip in my mind, and just went from like feeling sorry for myself every day to like, okay, what can I do today to get better? Like, how can I make today like the most productive day, and like how can I make today the best day ever? And it just started easy as that, and then just kept going from there. And just kind of like the compound effect. Like it's easier if you knock over one domino, the domino effect of like just keep going up and up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful, man. It's powerful.
Mm,
And I just think a lot of people just, don't necessarily get that all the time. It's like you don't appreciate the journey, without having to overcome adversities and, go through it. And it's like having the faith to be like, all right, I'm still going to keep going no matter what. And, it's like, yeah, everybody's got a different why, right? Like
mm,
everybody can, spin it differently. And, it's really cool to hear, man. So
for
just
sure, sure.
talk to us about the last year, probably like, so you get picked up by the Phillies, go to the FCL, and I think you threw a few innings there, if I'm not mistaken. Playing.
Florida State League, not the FCL. I kind of like it was kind of
Oh, so
funny.
you went to that. So you went to that. Did you throw it all in the FCL, or did you just go straight to the Florida State League?
So I didn't, it's not like I went straight to the Florida State League. I was so when I signed with the Phillies, it was actually I don't know how it was with you and the Reds, but like I got to Clearwater and I didn't like do anything for a week. Like it was kind of just sitting around like, oh, here's a doctor's appointment, here's your doctor's appointment, like here's your MRIs and your elbow and shoulder, just because that's the typical protocol with like if you're gonna sign a pitcher. So like I'm like waiting for all these appointments, waiting for like people to get back. And then I think like after a week I finally signed. And after that, they put me straight in the rehab because like I hadn't thrown to a batter still, even though I was fully game ready. But they were just like giving the history, like we just want to see you like built up a little bit. And I totally understood that. I threw, I think, like seven bullpens and three lives. And by the time that like my lives were coming, like the FCL was over. So like I
Yep.
never got a chance to throw there. But yeah, after my third live, I went to the with the Threshers in the Florida State League through in 1 week, and then it was the playoffs. And then I think I got two in a third. I think I got two and a third innings there, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yep.
like I got to throw in the championship series, which was really cool. And it's like looking back on it, like the fact that my second and third outing in 4 years was a championship in a professional baseball league. Like I'd never even really thought about that. Like it was just like I was just pitching.
Yeah.
That's
That's
all it
awesome.
was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I finished up the season. Like everything's great. End up, it's actually kind of funny. Like I've had like a knee issue going on for a little bit, still undiscovered why, but like that was my whole off season was figuring out like, okay, what's wrong with my knee? And I think it like reverts back to my first Tommy John surgery just because they took something out of my hamstring. Like nothing I can do about it.
Yep.
But just figuring that out, like was going rehabbing at Next Era in Arizona, like guys are doing a great job. I ended up going to a camp in early January and like was ramping up for the season there and kind of like still like dealing with like some knee issues. Like it was like still to this day, like it's still unknown of like why my knee was bothering me. But like was in Florida for majority of the off season, just getting ready there and end up breaking camp with low A. And like I will admit that was I wasn't expecting anything different, but it was just like I was 25 years old and the average age in that league is like what, 19, 20?
It's probably like just being in it right now. I think it's because you have like I would probably say I'm in the middle on my team. Like 22, like a junior draft guy, I think is kind of like the median because you have your
Really?
super young like international signs that come in as like 18, 19-year olds that, will make
Mhm.
it. You got your high school draft guys that are 19, but there's a lot of older college pitchers, a lot of like the Cardinals. I mean, they had three or four guys that I played against in college. So, I mean, and they had a bunch of college arms that were all pretty old. And I've also just kind of realized the other part of it too is like it doesn't really matter where you are in pro ball. It's like just play at the level you're at. Like moving up and down throughout a season is like so out of your control And it's like,
Hmm.
it's not like your assignment is your assignment. Like, really the guys that, unless you're just totally dominating every single level you're at, like hitting 430, like, you know, a guy last year did who made it up in less than a year, who was an eighth round pick from Oregon State. Like, unless you're doing that kind of thing, like you're gonna stay at the level you're at. And so like really just play because they know like how you're doing. They know what the deal is. They know like you can't look at the guys ahead of you or the levels ahead of you because I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like what I've also realized is like the hit, maybe not from the hitting perspective as much, but like in this league, like the stuff is still pretty dang good. And a lot of these guys' stuff, like I'm like, bro, this guy has the stuff to pitch in the big leagues. Like this guy's definitely good enough to be in double A. It's just it's just an age thing, whether it's an org thing, whether they just
Hmm.
keep guys they don't move as fast or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, anyways, bottom line is, yeah, I'd say the age is probably the median age is probably like 21. So I'm definitely on the older end, but
Yeah, just because like I was also like 3 years old, 3 to 6 years old, and everyone in my signing class too. Like everyone's like 21, 22, 18, 19, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm 24. So, and then now like being 25, and like that was like the thing that like I never want to compare myself, and like I've always been because my journey is extremely different as like we've been talking about, but it's like still at the end of the day, like the fact that I've played with a lot of guys that have not just been in the big leagues, but like doing really well in the big leagues. Like, don't get me wrong. I am super happy for like my past teammates that have like made it up there that are doing great. But it's like at the end of the day, like for me, it's like kind of like it hurts a little bit just because it's like seeing like that I'm like where I'm at. But I also like look back at the whole picture and be like, you know what, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, like my life was awful. And
yeah,
so the where I'm at now, like, is extremely remarkable. So, like, for me, just like staying where my feet are, like, I don't ever like look, because it's kind of weird, like in professional baseball, like seeing like we have a couple teammates like looking at guys and like in double A, or like, dude, like, why is he still there? Like, he's not doing good, or like, oh my
yeah,
God, dude, in low A is like doing really well. And it's just like, I really don't care. Like, I keep in touch with how my buddies are doing that I've made throughout the org, and like, don't ever wish anyone ill will. But
yeah,
it's just like it's a really weird process that's like hard to explain unless you've been here. Just because like unless the big league teams like not doing well or people are getting hurt, like no one's gonna move.
yeah,
And like it's I don't know. And then I like to like get back to like my to where I'm at now. Like I end up getting promoted about a month after the when I was in the Florida State League in low A. And like I'm now been in high A for majority of the season. And for me, like it's just like for I didn't look at it any differently. Like I think one of the reasons why like I got promoted early was just because of age. And like they just needed somebody and I was the guy. And like that's just how like it is. And like seeing other guys like get promoted, like your dudes that have been there a little bit longer, guys that are doing really well, that are showcasing really good stuff while also throwing strikes, guys that are just hitting the snot out of the baseball, playing good defense. It's just like executing on things that you can execute on.
exactly.
Because like the talent level is, from what I've been told, like it's just gonna get tighter and tighter and tighter for like how good it's going to be. And like, because I'm like playing against dudes in high A that are like pretty dang good. And even in low A, I saw some really good hitters and really good pitchers. And it's just
Yeah. They're
like
everywhere, dude. Like
they
it's
really are.
yeah. I mean, it's yeah. The thing is, it to me is just like who can do it the most consistently. Like
Hmm.
you can do it the most consistently. Those are the big leaguers. Like those are the
Yeah.
guys that go out every day, and that they're gonna get outs. That they're gonna if they're struggling a little bit offensively, you can't hold them down for very long. They're gonna get out of it. They know how to get out of it, and yeah, it's just yeah, like you said, when the pyramid and guys start falling off the pyramid as you keep going higher and higher up to get to the top, like the talent margin is just it's so thin. So
Hmm. But it's also like I'm seeing like some hitters like nowadays, like if someone gets promoted and like they didn't, like I start seeing guys like not doing as well just because like they think about like, well, what more do I got to do? Like, why am I not called up? And now instead
yeah,
of thinking about like playing the game, playing where their feet are, like they're just now thinking about like the future. And like as you know, if you think about the future, that brings on a lot of anxiety. Or if you think about a past that you can't control, like it brings you a little bit of depression. And so like for me, like I feel like that's like the biggest thing in baseball is just be where your feet are. And
100%.
like especially like just look back on the picture and like be like, well, you know what? Like I could be in a lot worse spot.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
so like it's like that's just kind of how I look at it. And like, I'm truly thankful for like everything that's happened to me, just because I don't know if I'm in the spot that I am in now compared to if the things were different. Like, if people ever asked me if like if I would have changed anything that's happened, I'd say no, just because I'm where I'm at now. And I'm really happy and grateful for that.
Right. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, man, is like you get perspective. You get perspective on, playing the game. Cause I mean, obviously, when you go through that difficult of a time, you have, such a gap where, throwing a baseball was just like the worst part of your day.
Hmm.
When it finally, after all that you've gone through to get to that point, when it starts to feel good again. You know that when things don't go well, that you have the ability to handle it, and you know that you can problem solve, and you know that you can figure stuff out. But B, it's like when things go well, it's like it tastes different. It's like when you're hungry and you eat a nice meal, or you haven't had water in like a couple hours, and after a hard workout, like it's just different. Like the
Hmm.
satisfaction is different. So when you go from that long to finally enjoying, success and reaping the rewards of, this journey, and obviously you're far from done, but it's like, hearing what you said, man, it's like I said earlier, this guy's gonna have the coolest story ever if he makes it to the big leagues. And I've always stood by that, and I've always genuinely believed that. I still have no doubts in my mind that you're going to do it, but I think it's just incredible.
I appreciate that, dude. And like likewise for you. I mean, I think everyone's just got like something to always say and like something to learn from. And I mean, there's obviously the dudes that are the first rounders, the high picks that are just like it seems like they're just gifted their way up, but it's like at the end, like you don't know what they've been through. Like you don't know
Yeah,
like well the stuff that they've been. So like that's like another thing too, is like I just like appreciate everyone that like I've played with, just because like I've started to like learn with like my Spanish is still pretty bad, but I try to talk to some of the Latin guys and just hear
yeah,
like what they've had to do to like get to America, and like how they're playing, and like how it's like for them, it's like they want to support their family, and it's like everyone's got a reason why. It's just if is it a big enough reason like to
dude.
keep going, to like keep pushing every single day when you don't feel like it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like,
Well, all right, Dilly. Appreciate you hopping on, man. Can't thank you enough. Being the first official guest on the Approach Pod. But it's been really cool, man. It's been really cool to hear your story from beginning to end. I've known bits and pieces, obviously, since I've gotten to know you. Like I said earlier, dear friend, great teammate, just great competitor, and just a guy who I admire and, just draw from, in the sense of like, when I'm feeling sorry for myself, or if I feel sorry for myself, I think, someone's always had it worse or got it worse and it's working that much harder. So, I look at you and I'm like, man, that guy, it's incredible. So appreciate you coming on, man. Love you to death. So thank you, brother.
no problem. Thank you, man. Like I said, like you truly challenged me at A&M to be the best that I can be, and like it's just it was cool from that aspect. That like wasn't even like someone in the pitching that I see all the time. Like it was a hitter that I would see, like just seeing you do like just simple hand-eye coordination drills with tennis balls, or seeing you out there early working on defense, and then just seeing just you just like taking your time on the cage on like a Saturday morning. Like it was like remarkable to see. And like, dude, it's been real pleasure to be able to know you and just like play with you. And I swear I hope I don't face you anytime soon. Because you're still 1 for 1 off me with hitting 1,000. So hopefully I don't gotta face you anytime soon, just for my sake. But like, I really appreciate you having me, dude. And I can't wait to follow on with the other people that you bring on here, just because you're gonna build something special.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Folks, this is Trey Dillard, the Philadelphia Phillies, first official Approach Pod guest. Trey, thanks for coming on, brother. See you next time.
Yes, sir. You have a good one, Jackie.
Bye, brother.